Hello and welcome to a slightly different video today. There will be riding, but we're also doing some suspension setup. You will see in a minute why, as my Orbea has been upgraded. If you've watched some of my other vlogs as well, you'll know that I really hate setting up suspension, but it's something that has to be done, especially as in a couple of weeks I'm off to do Mega Avalanche for the first time, so I really want my bike to be feeling good. So we're going to a familiar location to set it up because it's much easier to set up suspension when you already know the trails you're riding and how it kind of should feel, rather than going somewhere where you don't know much about the trail and then trying to set it up. You don't kind of have anything to gauge it against your other bikes. So familiar location, but slightly different vid. A little bit of context. The suspension I've got on there is what was partly off the Orange and partly off the Santa Cruz. So the forks are off the Orange e-bike, and the original forks, which are also factory ones, but completely 27.5s rather than 27 and 29. They're on here. And then the shock is the shock off the Santa Cruz. So they are all correctly the right size, made to fit, etc, etc. I've kept most of the settings that were on there before, but I have made it a little bit softer because it felt quite harsh on my ride the other day. So I've noted that down, and that's where we're going to start from. So as you can see, it's used quite a bit at the back and not so much at the front. It doesn't feel too hard at the top at the front, but it does feel pretty soft at the back, so we'll have a little bit of adjustment on that. Run number 2, I've set all the little rings back. So of course the other thing I've done as well as just going by the other stuff, I have of course set the sag and everything else just to give me that baseline. So I found the original suspension was really lovely and plush, and that was quite a nice ride, and I'd quite like to keep that, to be honest. That felt good, better coming off the end of there. Let's have a look at what the suspension says. Right, at the bottom, so all I touched was the rear shock. So I turned the rebound, slow and high speed rebound, up a little bit, so they're a bit firmer, one click each. But as you can see, just pedaling up here used quite a bit of travel. I actually have both the shock and the fork quite high pressures and run on the higher end of the sag, because I find when I actually ride, I bury through the travel pretty quickly, and then I tend to control the rest of the stuff through the rebounds and compression. But as I said, I've only touched rebound so far, so we'll see what it does when we get to the bottom. In theory, it should feel a bit harder at the back now, so firmer. Firmness will be seen as we come over this, probably. Okay, definitely didn't feel like it squished down so much, and looking at it, it's kind of worked the same, and the front's still about the same amount. Now there isn't really anything for the front where it should be being buried, so I wouldn't expect it to use that much travel, but obviously the rear shock's behaving exactly the same. What you'll notice from this is that I haven't actually touched the air pressure at all. So the air pressure that's in it I've got a note of, and that's what you use for the sag. So I know the sag's correct, so I'm not going to touch the air pressure, and that's usually the first place that people go to is thinking they need to let PSI out or put PSI in. Now a lot of the suspension, unless you've got really cheap stuff, is pretty good, and you can adjust a lot of stuff by using the little nodules on the side. factory suspension and the top end RockShox, etc., Öhlins, they all have much more adjustments, high and low speed adjustments, whereas when you have the cheaper stuff, they only have one set of adjustments because it's almost like automatically kind of set based off your air pressure. The other things you've got in there too, of course, is spacers. So I've got spacers both in the fork and in the shock, because previous bikes I've bottomed certainly shocks out, so I know I need them, so I already know what's in there. Standardly they tend to come with one, but it's pretty easy to put them into both. So all my adjustments have been from doing these things. So they'll tell you what they are, what size Allen keys you need, and which way to turn them, whether to turn them firmer or softer. So here you've got rebound and compressions in there, and then you've got your other rebound at the back, which is that red dial, which is very blurry, thank you iPhone. And then up here on the fork you got the same thing on the top for your compressions, and then down here underneath that cap it has your rebounds, and then handily on the back, if you do get stuck, it has some little instructions here which are actually a really good guide and would at least help you get out on the bike to begin with. I think it probably does. Okay, so I think we finished on that section. I have softened the fork a little bit and firmed up the shock. Basically, that's what I've done. Basically blind through here. Glasses are a little bit too much. There we are. Right, that's better. Yeah, so firmed the shock, softened the fork, and then we'll have a little go down here. Brakes are good. So it felt a lot better. It felt grippier as we were going and a bit more balanced. The main thing I'm looking for at the moment is how it feels at the back of the ankle, because it might be that I change it over time as I might want to firm things up. As I said, I normally run my suspension pretty firm, so that might change over time. I'm going to get off and have a very quick look, and that looks tons better. So it kind of looks like they're evenly working now, and there, whereas before the rear tread was like right up there. Next we're going down one of my favourite trails here that's a bit more rough, I guess, so this will be a different test for it now to see how it feels compared to some of the more flowy trails. Get all my O-rings back, and now we'll head off down here. That creaking noise isn't the bike, that's actually my seat, and I'm a little bit worried about, oh that feels good, about doing it up too tight because it's carbon, so it's probably a bit loose, and that's why it's doing the mad creaking. So down here a bit. Okay, that actually felt pretty good, but let's have a look. Yeah, now that's better. So yes, we should have used more travel at the back because that was a harsh sort of landing off that drop because I was being a bit cautious about my ankle, which was fine. And then we've used more travel at the front here, which is good because I pushed the nose in as well, like I said, to control that drop, so that's good. And on both you've got this extra space, which is like your safety pretty much, to know that you can go a little bit further if you're riding harder. And I know now from what I've just done with the settings that all I need to do to change this bike of how it feels is to add compression and possibly rebound speeds onto both if I'm riding something harsher and faster. I have another potential problem with this bike. Well, not potential, definitely problem. It turns out that it came with inner tubes front and rear, and when I was at Bike Park Wales I destroyed the back tyre. It's got a plug-in, changed it to tubeless, thank you very much Velotool for their valve. So got one of their valves in, and also for their plugging kit. But the problem is that it is too much damage to the tyre and the plug isn't actually holding, so it periodically spits sealant out, which is what it's doing now on a hill. Tyre is totally dead. So I am walking back to the van. Slightly annoying. Didn't get to ride on Thursday because of my own stupidity, and somehow I didn't bring trousers, but I still don't know where my trousers are. And it was a really wet day, so like if it had got wet, I wouldn't have had anything to change into. And today, it's just a lesson really. I probably should have done something about it. I know I've got to take the tube out of the front tyre before Mega Avalanche, so I guess the rest of the afternoon is just going to be sorting out tyres. Jim's going to try and get me some Vittoria tyres and inserts, which is cool. It's going to be good to have a spare, but I'm going to have to get a tyre before then. Got back on the bike. It seems to be holding at 14 psi, so put any more air in it than that and it just comes bursting out, but it holds at 14, so I can pedal pretty slowly on the road. So that's what I'm going to do to get back to the van, and then I'm going to go somewhere and try and find a tyre. We are back and have found a suitable tyre, which is a Recon, I think. So it's a downhill casing tyre, which is not going to be too bad for the Mega Avalanche. Took a while to get it to seat, but got it on. Still no insert, but hopefully I'll get one of them and be able to put it on in France. But at least this means I can actually ride my bike next week, and I will have a spare tyre and a spare set of wheels with new tyres on. So rather than already be using a rear wheel that I want to put on the new e-bike to make it mullet, I will still have 2 spare wheels now, which is the best option, I think, because I want to go to Mega Avalanche with some wheels just in case. And now I've got some spare tyres. So that is it. New tyre on the back, which is actually the same tyre that's on the front. I've pedalled it round and round and round to make sure the sealant's in. So fingers crossed, Tuesday when I come back to ride it again, it's all stayed up, all really good, and it will be perfect for the weekend. Thank you very much for watching this video. Sorry it wasn't quite the video that it was supposed to be with all the riding, but as you know, you can't help having punches and the rest, but I do think the suspension setup was successful, so we'll see at the next ride. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you at the next one.